Alright. This ain't just a show. This is a platform. Veteran built, battle tested. Welcome to the Misfit Nation. Yeah! In a room, built from boots on the ground, now we breaking the rules. 2 vets, 1 leader, painting the sound, turn scars into sermons, let them echo around. Artists with truth, musicians with fire, actors backstage chasing something higher. Entrepreneurs bleeding just to get ahead. If you fought for your dream, yeah, you are what you said. If they told you no, if you still came back, if you fell to your knees but you stayed on track, this is your voice, this is your flame. Say it loud, remember the name. No salvation, just elevation. We rise again. From the fight, to the end. We are the Misfit Nation. No damn labels, no damn cages. If you're still breathing, you belong. Turn it up, this is our song. Yeah, this is our song. Yeah. Veterans standing with ghosts in the chest. First responders running in while the world second guess. Gold star names carved deep in the soul. Your story ain't over, we carry the whole. Coaches teaching mindset, breaking the chains, turning barely alive into owning the pain. Truth over polish, scars on display. If it's real, let it bleed. That's the misfit play. If it's heavy right now, in the dark feels cold. If it's heavy right now, in the dark feels cold. If it's heavy right now, in the dark feels cold. It's Submarine right now. We're the more than you know. 9888, don't walk alone. Veterans press 1, bring it home. Don't trade forever for tonight. You're still needed in this fight. We're the Misfit Nation, built from scars and dedication. We rise again. From the fight, to the end. We are the Misfit Nation. Every voice is fabrication. From the silence to the scream, we're strong. Welcome home, you belong. You belong. Get up, you belong. Oh wait, you. Oh wait, get up, you belong.
Woo! All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. It's our last day of the Memorial Week shows. It's Friday, and I'm going to bring in Cagney to hang out with me. There he is. What's going on, Cagney?
Good evening, everybody.
Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I know it's Friday night. It's after 7. You've got things going on in your lives. We have a good show tonight. This is the last show of our Memorial Week shows this week. If you missed the first one, it was on Monday night with Denise Williams talking about her son, Andrew Mayer. And if you never heard those stories before, it'll probably rip you up like it did to Steve.
Yes, it did.
Tonight, Steve, we got another good one tonight, Stephen. We got a United States Navy veteran coming on, Annapolis graduate. And let's just get with the intro and get this thing on the road. What do you think?
I think that's the best thing to do right now. Let's get that story out there.
All right, hit your mute button. Let's do this. All right, welcome back. We're here where we bring stories that matter, stories of grit, sacrifice, leadership, and the people who refuse to quit when life hits hardest. Tonight's guest is the definition of service. From the Navy's nuclear power program, the halls of Annapolis, to serving aboard submarines, teaching the next generation, leading in Afghanistan, and earning the Bronze Star. Commander Greg Roach has lived a life mission on leadership. But tonight isn't only about his awards and accomplishments. It's about brotherhood. It's about remembering the men we lost after the war. And it's about the invisible battles too many veterans continue to fight. Misfit Nation, this conversation matters. So let's get after it. Welcome, Greg.
Rich, Steve, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor.
It's great to have you here. it's always good to connect with fellow veterans and be able to hear their stories and let them share to the world what they did and why they served, why they joined, what they did in service. And like yours, it's an unlikely journey for a naval officer to go from Annapolis to submarine warfare to being in Kunar on a PRT to now back into civilian world, still leading from the front and still teaching and mentoring and still remembering those that left the battlefield and then left us after. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this tonight.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, just kick us off with the why behind starting off in service. Why the Navy? Why the Naval Academy?
Well, it's interesting. I would say I like to thank both of my parents for the feelings of patriotism and service that they provided me each in their own way. I grew up on Long Island in New York, in the shadow of New York City. My mother is a 100% patriot, somebody who loves her country, red, white, and blue through and through. So, deep patriotism, love of the country, awareness of our history and our exceptionalism as a nation was something that was important in our house. My father was a true believer in service. He was a volunteer fireman for 25 years on Long Island. A lot of people don't believe it. Long Island, one of the most densely populated parts of our country, is almost purely volunteer firemen. And so you could do it. You could be a volunteer even in a very densely populated city, urban type environment like that. And so, service was very important. I also had a number of family members who were in the military that I looked up to. And so military service was definitely something that was not really a surprise, something that I would have found very interesting. And of course, being on Long Island, going out on the boat with my dad, every weekend in the summertime to go fishing, just being out on the water. The Navy was really an obvious choice. So I was kind of always groomed in that way to eventually serve the country and to do so in the Navy. And it was a wonderful experience, a really very enriching experience for my whole life. It's set me up for everything I've done. All the experiences that I had, some are good, some are bad, and all of those things, but they help build you as the person that you are. And certainly very proud of my service.
Definitely. I was just reading your bio, what you sent me, and just knowing what you guys go through to get onto the subs, being a nuclear program. I had nothing but I was in awe of it because I was a Seaburn guy in the Army, and I had the little pieces of nuke and
Sure.
in my world, not as much as you. I didn't have as much responsibility for that kind of stuff as you did, and I really applaud your career and the things you did on that side. And then when you transitioned and moved over into a PRT, that's amazing.
The nuclear piece of my career is actually an interesting start. It actually begins out of failure, I guess you can say, in some regards. As many young people excited or interested in attending a service academy, the competition is exceptionally rough. It's difficult. There's about a 90% of the folks that apply don't get the appointment to the academy. I worked very hard in high school in all aspects, academically, athletically, being involved in the community. And, I was nominated to go to the Naval Academy, but unfortunately I did not receive an appointment. But I really had a strong desire to serve in the Navy and to be a naval officer and hopefully get another shot at attending the Naval Academy. So I went to the Navy recruiting office, and I think my dad got very nervous because I was going to be the first person in the family to go to college. So that meant a lot to him. And suddenly now I'm going to be enlisting in the Navy. But I went to the recruiting office and I talked to them and I said, what is the best way to get, into the Naval Academy, if I don't make it in directly from high school? And they said, oh, you got to be in the Navy's nuclear power program. That is a great academic experience. And, you're going to, if you really succeed in this, you'll get a high look to go to the Naval Academy if you reapply. So, of course, you never know what the recruiter is. He telling you the truth? Is this a story? Whatever. But the program is outstanding. It challenges people from all walks of life, rigorous academics, and tremendous amount of responsibility for a young age. for folks enlisting and even junior officers. And it was a true story. Unfortunately, I did not get into the Naval Academy. So I went to boot camp, joined the Navy, became a petty officer 3rd class after I graduated electronics technician A school, and went to Naval Nuclear Power School in Orlando, Florida. And was doing very well through that process. And, I graduated at the top of my class in electronics technician school. I was doing very well in nuclear power school. And I put the recruiters to the test and say, is this really true? And I reapplied to the Naval Academy, and I received a nomination from the Secretary of the Navy and did get in the second time around. So having that extra bit of, motivation and showing them that I was really serious, I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And that, I was willing to join the Navy. And, if it didn't work out in that regard, I would have been, the best Navy nuke that I could be as an enlisted sailor. And, I was very fortunate to get accepted during that second application. And so I did attend Annapolis at that point, and I was able to graduate in 1996. I was fortunate enough to be permitted to go to grad school. So I attended Georgia Tech, where I got my master's in nuclear engineering, and then went out to the fleet as a submarine officer. I served on the USS Asheville, SSN 758. It's a fast attack submarine of the Los Angeles class from 1998 to 2002. We were home ported in beautiful Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, which was a great duty station. Love it. We miss it every day that we're not there since having moved away. But that, and then, of course, throughout my naval career, being involved with the submarine community, and then my follow-on career in the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, that decision back in 1991 to join the Navy's nuclear power program, it's guided my whole life, basically. And so it's interesting with regard to the Naval Academy. I have almost every experience you could have with it, right? I was rejected by the Naval Academy. I was accepted by the Naval Academy. I graduated from the Naval Academy. I was privileged to come back and teach for a couple of years at the Naval Academy. I became a blue and gold officer to help mentor young men and women who are applying to the Naval Academy. So had just about every experience. As an instructor, we lived there. My daughter was born there. It was just, we definitely love the institution, and, look forward to getting a chance to go back and visit sometime soon, hopefully. As our 30th reunion is coming up, if you can believe that.
Wow. And you have to go to that.
Yes. Yep.
You don't know how many brothers will make it any further. Brothers and sisters will still be around as you go further into the years and years as we get older.
Yes, that's right. Definitely want to see everybody. I had a couple of my shipmates, my classmates, actually retire this week at 30 years. So it was pretty neat. Brian O'Lavin, who was a Navy SEAL, he retired today at 30 years. And Chris Adams, who was a surface warfare officer, he retired at 30 years earlier this week. So certainly pretty impressive to be able to work through 30 years of active duty, all the moving, all the challenges and whatnot. But they did it. So very proud of them.
And through those 30 years of their service, 20 plus was during the global war on terrorism.
That's correct. Yep. Especially as a Navy SEAL for Brian. Yep.
Tip of the spear for a long time to do that and just carry that torch forward and show that leadership, that mentorship to those coming behind. That's an amazing journey. And for you, like you said, going through all the steps for the Naval Academy, from rejection to going to the fleet to going on the nuke sub as petty officer 3rd class, and then moving back into the academy after you got accepted. So you can actually mentor any high schooler as they're going through the whole process and tell them what to expect. And if it does go bad the first time, keep pushing forward, because as long as you keep doing the right things, things will work out for you.
Absolutely. And I'm very fortunate as a pretty active member of the American Legion here in our town. I've had a chance to mentor a lot of young folks that are interested in attending service academy or just joining the military in general, and being able to kind of have that story of, here's things when they don't work out, don't just immediately say, okay, that's done, close that door, moving on to something different. If you really want to serve, there are ways to serve, be motivated, continue to push forth, and eventually you will get there. Right. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, definitely. And as long as you're doing the right things. And
that's right.
If you're excelling in your field, like you did, people will notice that. People will start pushing you to do other things. And it may not be the academy, maybe go into OCS in the Army or whatever, but you'll be able to make that next move because someone will see what you're doing and highlight what you're doing and
Absolutely.
make you follow your dream and do it. And it's, if I could do it all over again, I would have accepted that push when I was a young sergeant to go to OCS. But I thought I would not be a good officer, and I just stayed the NCO Corps.
You know, it's funny, when I was in boot camp, one of the drill instructors had asked me what my purpose for being in the Navy was, and I made the fatal mistake of telling him I wanted to be an officer. That was definitely not what he wanted to hear. That was definitely the wrong answer for that moment. But I'm sure in his mind he probably thought, yeah, this guy has a good plan. But of course, he couldn't tell me that, right?
He couldn't share that with you in front of everybody.
That's right. That's right.
You had to make sure you understood that it was wrong to say that at that point.
Exactly.
I'm sure years later, as he looked at rosters, he said, "Oh, I knew that young man. Now he's a working officer on the submarine. He's doing awesome things, and he's probably still as proud as you as he was when you became a PO3."
Thank you.
But on the submarine, I've never been on a submarine. How is life on the submarine?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, it's very interesting. My career, I had my underway experiences were on submarines and aircraft carriers. So that's the absolute spectrum of. Now my real long underways were on submarines. Much shorter underways were on aircraft carrier. The submarine, way preferable to me. Way preferable.
Wow.
And I'll say the key reason for that is the crew on a submarine is as close a group of 120 individuals as you can get for obvious reasons. We're stuck together in a steel tube under the ocean, hundreds of feet below the ocean for months at a time. And, everybody's situation, everybody knows each other. You know, every person's name on the ship, you know where they're from, you know, if they're married, they have kids, what their circumstances are, what they want to do in their naval career. Because you're that close together. You're with each other all the time. I will say life, because of a small crew and so many vital, important things to do, with a nuclear power plant to run, with the ship to, a tactical weapon that has to be properly operated, the sub-safe piece, you're underneath the ocean, hundreds of feet with millions of tons of water on top of your head, right? There's not a lot of room for mistakes. So, it's a higher pressure environment. It's a very high workload environment, but the closeness and camaraderie that you have on board the ship was really meaningful to me. And our mission set, especially being on a fast attack submarine, I thought was very interesting. We got to really travel the world and see a lot of interesting places, do a lot of very interesting things that I'll never be able to talk about for the rest of my life. But I really, really enjoyed that submarine life. Now, it is difficult to be away from home a lot. My first year of marriage, my wife will say, "Hey, I got the privilege of, moving out to Hawaii." But, she was by herself for about 8 of those first 12 months because I was underway during that time. So, we had a very high op tempo, and, that part is challenging. But I really did enjoy my time being on the ship and being on the submarine, mainly for that crew. Now, as far as the creature comforts go, as you would imagine, there are very few. I would say probably by far the most privileged thing we had on board was the food was fantastic. And a lot of that was because mess specialist first class really, really fashioned himself, Petty Officer Irish, fashioned himself as a chef. He was not a cook. He was a chef. Right. And, in the sort of pre-9/11 days, whenever we would pull into port, he would integrate with the local big restaurants and whatnot, and have them sometimes invite his sailors up to their restaurant to see what it was like to cook different cuisines of the world and different places within the United States. And then even, when it was permissible, be able to show them the kitchen on the submarine, the galley, to be able to see what it was like to be able to cook in that environment. And, it was definitely, we ate quite well. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest privileges you have on the submarine. After that, everything else is pretty minimal comforts. Let's put it that way. So
that's awesome that your mess section was able to have that I guess that professionalism and want to be better than what they were looked at as, to have awesome meals and learn the cuisines of all the awesome places you probably got to go to.
Yes.
That's amazing.
yeah, being pack sailors, we got to visit the whole Westpac environment, as well as the Middle East and the Persian Gulf and all the places in between, all the way down to Australia and Singapore and Philippines and so many different places. So yes, absolutely. Being able to bring some little piece of those places we visited back with us and, carrying it on as we were underway. Very important.
Of all those places you got to see in the Pacific and other places, what was your favorite destination?
I would say I probably had a couple. I think I enjoyed my trips to Japan. I also enjoyed very much our trip to Australia. We were actually got to be effectively, if you want to say, I won't say home ported, but we kind of operated out of Fremantle, which is on the western side of Australia, for a few months, doing different exercises with the Australian Navy, as well as our own operational stuff in the Indian Ocean. And that was really a great experience, being able to see, Australia, which I was really looking forward to doing, just seeing nature and the animals there, and just meeting the people, going to an Australian rules football game. Just had a lot of really good experiences there, and my wife even got a chance to come out and visit, so that was
Nice.
that was neat. So yeah, so we definitely, I would say Japan and Australia definitely high up my list. But we had a wonderful time in Singapore. The Philippines is a different story. That is a really challenging story. We were one of the first ships to actually pull back into Subic Bay after it was not a naval base anymore, and it was something we were starting to maybe reopen, having more ships visit. Just doing a port call there, and this was in around April of 2000. And so I'm a newlywed, but we're out deployed, gone again, part of that 8 months of being away. And my wife decides she's going to come in, effectively do like a little bit of a surprise. So, we can't really talk about our schedule very much. We say, hey, this next place, maybe you shouldn't really go there. Maybe, questionable, we're going to be in Subic. We haven't really had a presence there in a long time. But, her and a couple of the other wives came out, and they came to visit. And so they, we got to spend a few days with them. And so now it's the last day. We're about to leave to go to Japan, and they're flying back to Hawaii. And so that morning they come and say goodbye to us. And of course, embarrass me and the other officer in chief whose wife are there, make us kiss our wives goodbye, and all the crew, And so we say goodbye to them. And so that afternoon we had a VIP visit from some folks in the Philippine government that came out to see the ship and see what it's like to be underway with us and whatnot, from their Secretary of Defense, effectively, folks. And so we come back in quickly to drop them off before we're heading out. And while we're changing, we get the three of us that were on board get a call topside and figure, they're going to embarrass us again. I thought they had left. We get there, and we say, Captain says, get in this car right now. So we get in the car, and we're like, what the heck's going on here? And it turned out that the wives were in a very bad car accident heading back to Manila, and they were quite injured. And we wound up being, basically stuck in the hospital for several days, trying to get them to be recuperated, and before we could try to make our way back to the United States. And of course, the ship leaves, and so that was a chaotic moment in a relatively new marriage. Wife very severely injured and having surgery in the Philippines, and just really, definitely, something that would, we'd have to work through and get them back, my wife and the other two wives back safely to Hawaii, and working with the State Department and calling back to the States and say, hey, we got a problem here. So it was very interesting, crazy situation, but we made it through. There was this one moment, almost reminds me a little bit of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where they're eating the different foods that that the one woman doesn't want to eat at all, right? And the snake surprise and the monkey brains and all that. And so my wife was had very bad dislocated and broken jaw, and her teeth were all damaged, and of the many injuries that she had, so it's very hard to eat. And so some of the food that they were presenting was not necessarily easy to eat, or something she was, found appetizing or whatever. And so she asked, could I just have soup? right? They say, oh, yes, we'll bring you some soup. So they bring in this big bowl of soup, and it's got the whole fish right in the soup, with the head and everything. Fish head soup. So that's for our forever joke now. It's, the fish head soup in the Philippines, right? So see it or go, it's the head sticking out of the soup broth. So that's right. Yeah. So that was quite an experience we had there. But we all got home safely, and then of course I dropped her off in Hawaii, and then we all flew back to Japan to meet the ship and get back underway. So
wow.
Definitely the life of a submariner. Not a lot of folks to fill the gaps when people are missing. So
right.
Needed to get back quickly. Right.
Definitely. We only have 120. That's the size of a company in the Army. So 2 or 3 guys are out, that you're down to 117. And then if anyone gets sick or anything on the ship, now those numbers just dwindling the whole way. And I can see next man up, but it gets hurt. It gets a lot more painful when you keep having next man up things going on.
Yep.
Did you guys ever go back to the Philippines just to visit and say, hey, this is the better way to do it?
we have not been back since then.
All right.
Yep.
Steve, you have any questions?
No, I'm going to drop out because otherwise I'm just going to sit here muted for however long. Because people are sleeping, and I apologize, Greg. I'm going to leave you.
Not at all.
He's the best. You're in good hands.
Thank you.
All right. Good night. All right. So, did you ever get to pop through ice in the sub?
I am not a blue nose, which is disappointing. So, blue nose are the folks that go above the Arctic Circle. My submarine was not tasked with that particular mission. We did stuff in the Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean, all throughout the Pacific, both the North and South, all the way from basically California all the way to the Persian Gulf. But I did not get above the Arctic Circle. So that is a little bit of a disappointment in my submarine career. I am not a blue nose. I'm a shellback, Golden Dragon. I have not been to the Arctic Circle, unfortunately, but that would definitely have been very cool to be up there and play football or something, and then at the North Pole.
Those are some awesome pictures. I always see those pictures. That's like on the Navy recruiting posters. They show those ones.
Yep, get to meet Santa Claus. The whole thing. Yep.
You just go to Santa Claus, Indiana, and do that too now. So
that's right.
Then when did you move off the out of the fleet and into instructing, and then how did you wind up in the PRT?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. So in 2002, I rotated off the Asheville, and I did a tour as an instructor at the Naval Academy. I was teaching a naval architecture class for non-engineering students, and then when I first arrived, one of the professors that I had, I was a marine engineer, which is basically power plant engineering for ships, which includes nuclear power, amongst other things, was retiring. And the class that he had taught, which was called nuclear energy conversion, it's kind of a nuclear reactor design type class, was basically going to kind of go away since there was none of the other professors were jumping up to take it. And so I raised my hand and said, hey, could I do this? And they said, okay, sure. Good luck. Right. go figure it out, which I really appreciated at the Naval Academy. They, you kind of get the impression that coming there as an officer instructor, not as a professor, but as an instructor, that they're going to be very, like, you got to do it this way, this way, this way. They basically say, hey, you're an officer, teach the class, do a good job. We'll be watching. Right. And, so they gave me a lot of leeway. I adjusted the curriculum, kind of modernized it a little bit, got a new syllabus, brought in a simulator that we could use that was based on one of the commercial reactor designs. And I think it was really a privilege to be able to do it. And it really set me up for my future civilian job in the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, because it was based on civilian nuclear power designs, both in the United States and internationally. And so I was able to do that for 2003 and 2004. I always wanted to be a volunteer fireman because, like I said, my father was a fireman, and I basically grew up in the firehouse with him on Long Island. I got to be an EMT in the Anne Arundel County Fire Department in West Annapolis, which was a wonderful experience. So I got to do those couple of items. At that point, we had 2 kids, and it was going back out to the fleet. Or possibly joining the reserves. I made the decision at that point to join the reserves. and we moved to the Chicagoland area where we presently live. And I got my civilian job working for the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission as a inspector. And I joined the reserves in Office of Naval Research, Science and Technology Unit. And I would say, I'm going to be honest, that wasn't my favorite time. It was not a very operational unit. It was analytical and almost like being a grad student, basically, for these different science and technology platforms, evaluating them, et cetera, for the Navy. I was very fortunate while I was one day attending a officer fitness report writing class. There was a Submarine 05 who was teaching this class, and he comes up to me after the class and in a very loud voice asked me, how is it that there's a submarine officer at our base that he doesn't know, and what unit am I in? And so I said, I'm in this Naval Research Unit. And the next day I was in his unit doing operational submarine force reserve work, which was fantastic. Became a submarine element coordinator, going out to aircraft carriers and with the battle groups and actually coordinating the anti-submarine warfare platforms to avoid blue on blue between the surface and air community that supports the battle group and the submarines that were attached to the battle group. And so did some wonderful operational work that really reinvigorated my reserve career, I think, at that point. And I was doing that. So you go from 2004 until 2010. And I was, involved first with Naval Research and then with the Strike Group Operations Unit. And again, now finally doing some real operational stuff in the reserves that I really appreciated. So I've been out of the Navy now, out of the active duty service in the reserves for 6 years by 2010. And of course, the surge was going on in Afghanistan and to a lesser extent in Iraq by that time. I had not been mobilized and I'd been off of active duty for 6 years. So it was pretty evident that my name was going to be picked pretty soon. So interestingly, we had this monthly newsletter, Submarine Force Reserve Component Subnote, that would come out, and it was basically a newsletter for reservists in the submarine community. And there was an advertisement in there that said, hey, we're looking for 04s, which I was at the time, lieutenant commander, to be an XO of a Provincial Reconstruction Team in Afghanistan. And so my boss at the time had just gotten back from Afghanistan, and he really didn't have a very good experience. He was kind of, in the higher headquarters staff position in Kabul, became like a PowerPoint guy, terrible hours, and you're getting yelled at because the color on the PowerPoint isn't exactly right, whatever. And it was really an unpleasant experience, not from a being at risk or anything like that, but it was just, you weren't doing something meaningful. If you're going to be away from your family, if you're going to be supporting the effort, you want to feel like you did something really meaningful. And he basically expressed that he really didn't want that. It was terrible, not really a good experience. So here I have this example now that says, hey, be an operational PRT XO, and it was exactly what I was, a submarine lieutenant commander. And so I have this in my mind. This is in the January 2010 newsletter. And the ready mobilization pool RMP list is coming out for who's going to be mobilized in the next year at the end of January of 2010. And so that ginormous spreadsheet gets emailed out to all the reserve officers, et cetera. And, 50,000 lines down, there's my name and social security number. So I know I'm getting mobilized, right? So I guess this is the interesting part of the story, perhaps. So I have this thought in my head, what, if I'm going to get mobilized, I want to do something meaningful.
Greg, you still there? lost Greg. All right, so while Greg is working through technical issues, he was talking about his service on the submarines, went to the reserves, and now he knew his time was coming to take a trip. His commander had taken this trip, and it was not a good trip. He just came back. He's talking about the workup to get back into the field and get into Afghanistan, since he had never been, and since he was a submariner and used to pack. And now he's working that packet to try to get back in there. And while we're waiting on him to come back in, we'll just talk about things going on this week. And as you know, Wednesday we did the tip of the spear. It was myself, Gunny Deeds, David Willis, and Chase Sparks. Great conversations. We talked about the J.J. Millette case, of course, to see where that stands now and how we can help. We talked about things going on in the veteran sphere, and how that case will affect a lot of people. And within it, of course, we talked about the things we all did for Memorial Day, and this is part of our Memorial Week shows. So each year we do this, and we try to have as many veterans as possible come on, or as many people come on and talk about their families and such as are on the show. And it's always good to have them on and talk to them and see those things. Right now, we're still waiting on Greg to get back in. We'll still play a little commercial for us. SOF Missions here.
Hello, my name is Damon Friedman, co-founder and president of SOF Missions. As a 20-year veteran within Special Operations, I've gone through many challenges due to my military service and time in combat. We felt called to start SOF Missions to serve our fellow brothers and sisters in arms, focusing on suicide prevention and resiliency. Our mission at SOF Missions is to empower warriors to find purpose and be resilient. Since 2011, when we started the organization, almost 3 million men and women have deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the scars of war take a toll on their psychological, physical, social, and spiritual health. Many veterans feel a sense of hopelessness and a loss of purpose when they return to civilian life. They feel isolated and alone, unable to reconnect. And in the greatest of tragedies, over 20 veterans lose all hope and take their own lives. Our goal at SOF Missions is to provide veterans the tools and resources so that they don't become a statistic. We offer a unique approach to combating veteran suicide through a whole health, intradisciplinary model. The Be Resilient program is a 4-pillar methodology that addresses the areas of psychological, physical, social, and spiritual wellness. We provide care through 3 delivery methods: medical clinics, retreats, and educational training. Since we started back in 2011, we have been able to reach veterans in all 50 states and have served over 3,000 veterans through the Be Resilient program. Being resilient is a multifaceted and complex issue. We know that to find a lasting solution, we have to address the whole warrior. Many challenges cannot be solved by providing the treatments and modalities of just one component, but by tackling them all. Now, we've expanded our services to include law enforcement and first responders. Together, we can make a lasting impact in the lives of warriors across the nation. To learn more, visit our website at sofmissions.org.
Proceed to your post assignment. All units proceed to your post assignment.
For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community.
All right, Greg is back. Welcome back, Greg.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what happened. We lost the internet there for a second. Apologize.
Sent you a message seeing if you were okay. 'Cause first, I
Yeah.
thought it was because I'm in a hotel, so I thought the usual hotel bug got me. But then I did all these little self checks. I was like getting wounded in combat. You check all yourself first.
That's right. Yes.
I blamed me first, and then I saw it.
No.
Him.
Sorry about that.
Glad you're back. So we were in the middle of you talking about when you got the orders to go on to your next mission.
Yeah. So the RMP list comes out and my name is on it. And so I reached out to an old boss of mine who was down in CENTCOM and said, hey, could you help me get in touch with the right people to do this PRT XO job? And so he did. And so I get a call from Damnick, Virginia and say, hey, you got to fill out all of this paperwork, this huge resume, do all of these things. The admiral is going to review it and decide who he's picking. You'll hear in about 2 months. So 2 months go by and I get a call and they say, you know what, the admiral liked your resume and so you're going to be selected to be an XO. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. Outstanding, right? And so as the months go by now through to 2010, my future CO reaches out to me and says, hey, introduce himself, Scott Murdoch. We're going to be in Kunar, which of course is, the craziest of the places, right? So get ready. And in addition to being the PRT, we're going to run the FOB. So Forward Operating Base Wright was our responsibility. We were the owners of it. And so all the things that happened there, FOB Wright is basically an enabler base in Asadabad, Kunar, which is the capital city of Kunar Province. And so we're going to have that extra responsibility. This is going to be interesting, right? So get to the end of the year and, 2010 is in the books and I'm heading down to Gulfport, Mississippi to begin the mission here, to begin all the training and stuff that's going to go into eventually getting to Afghanistan. And there's the 5 other Navy PRT XOs with me and we're going to travel down together. And so like everything in the Navy, you always get to wherever you're going in the middle of the night in some 15 passenger van driving to a base, in the darkness. So we're being picked up from the airport late at night. We're driving and we're in this dark van and I'm kind of sitting in the back, all these things racing through my mind about what ways ahead of us. And I hear this one individual kind of, acting frustrated about being there. Right. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, didn't you? So I eventually I say, hey, didn't you submit an application for this? And they all turn around and they go, no, we just got these orders. So I was the only idiot who volunteered. So there you go. so that was like, what the heck happened? I thought I had to submit a big application for this job. You guys just got assigned it. So I was the one guy who put in an application, and the other guys all got assigned. But we all were very close from that moment on as we went to our individual, through the training together, and eventually, we deployed to Afghanistan in June of 2011. And so we were the again Provincial Reconstruction Team. Our job, we had kind of an interesting job. We were the governance and development group. So we had some State Department folks that were assigned attached to our unit, as well as we had a civil affairs element as a part of the 432nd Civil Affairs Battalion, which is in Wisconsin. They were an element of our PRT. So that was the governance side. We were working with their local government to help build, hopefully, the civilian confidence in their own government and, of course, the competence of the local government officials to be able to deal with all the things that were happening in a very kinetic province. And then we had the development side, which was sort of the engineering and construction side, as the quality control folks to make sure all of these projects that were being funded by American taxpayer dollars were being correctly constructed, and they were useful and being used for the things that we expected them to be used for, whether those be roads, schools, an orphanage, hospital, bridges, various different engineering work. So we had engineering element to our group, which, my background being an engineer, that was certainly was helpful to have that. And then, we had the Navy put us through civil affairs schools. We had at least a taste of what it was like to do that piece. And, all of the governance side, working with the Governor Wahidi of Kunar at the time. And so we had also a challenge that we were probably not fully expecting, was that we had to go from being the Santa Claus PRT to the Grinch PRT. Effectively, as we were going through our training, we got the message that it was time to basically share with the Afghans that we were not going to be an unlimited supply of funds and cash and projects and whatever other, good ideas they came up with to run to the Americans to get funding and support for. And suddenly we were going to have to say no to a lot of projects, which, you get there and everybody's like, oh, we love you. We love you. And then, you're like, well, we're actually not going to do that. What? So, our 9 months in country were a lot of no's, and hey, we're going to start wrapping that up, and we're going to move towards you guys doing a little more with this work. And so definitely added an extra challenge to our mission set while we were there. That's for certain.
I can just see their faces change when you started saying no to things.
Yes, it was a shock to everybody. Let's just put it that way.
I was in Kandahar 10-11, and we went through that same kind of rotational phase while we're there, to from here's everything, then to, hey, what are you going to do now? And
that's right.
We're here to watch you do what we taught you. And then I was in Kunar in 2012, so probably right after you left.
Yep. We were there until March 2012. Yep.
I got there May 2012. Yep. So right after you left, and it was a very volatile area.
It was, yes. Yeah, definitely was.
To put it nicely, I guess.
Yes.
Stunning views there. Stunning views in Kunar. The mountains are beautiful. If it wasn't a war-torn country, it could be Colorado.
Yes, I agree. It's funny. My mother lives in Las Vegas now, and I would say in some regards, it is that high desert type environment. It's very hot in the summertime, dry, whatnot. You have the mountains / also the rocks and sand that you expect in a desert type environment. And then kind of a cool winter, but not super cold, right? So similar to that.
Walk us through some of the most challenging times of that mission as PRT at XO.
Yeah, I would say probably in the very beginning, the PRT is a patchwork unit, to put it lightly and politely. We had folks from the regular Army, active duty Army, the Reserve Army, and the National Guard Army. We had Navy active duty folks and Navy Reserve folks. We had Air Force active duty folks, and we had civilians from the U.S. Department of State, the Department of Agriculture, and USAID. And so you have all of these different personalities and all of these different expectations and philosophies and cultures coming together in this effectively 86-person unit. And obviously, we have to learn each other's language. You're trying to learn, at the same time, you're trying to learn Army and Air Force and U.S. Department of State, right? And so that challenge of kind of hopefully creating an environment where we at least understood what the expectations were and what our experiences were. I think being in the Navy, frankly, I think probably some of the Army folks were like, hey, these guys leading us, they're in the Navy. What do they know about being on the ground in a war, right? And, I would say there's some value to that. We were in Camp Atterbury prior to heading over, and it was a very rigorous 3 months in Camp Atterbury. The joke is that you can't wait to get to Afghanistan to get out of Camp Atterbury. And obviously there's a lot of catching up to try to understand the tactics, techniques, and procedures that are going to be used in a ground combat type environment. Now, we weren't a maneuver element, we were enablers, but you're still there. You're still having to be out in this very kinetic environment. The bad guy doesn't differentiate between who the PRT is and who, some platoon at Fob Joyce is that's out as a maneuver element in the field, right? They just see us as Americans that are out there, doing something that they don't like, right? So, definitely that kind of getting everybody together on that same sheet of music was challenging through training, and then even getting in country in the first, showing up in June, that's the beginning of fighting season. So you show up and the adversary is testing you constantly every single day, both on base and out, when we were out on mission. And so again, just try to developing everybody's confidence in each other and understanding what the expectations were, I would say, was definitely a challenge in the beginning, but we certainly worked towards building a cohesive unit. Again, as we talked about, having to be the Grinch, PRT after Santa Claus, just left. Suddenly people who were going to be your friends weren't as friendly towards us anymore because, again, we were not being as, we weren't giving them everything they were asking for. So that was definitely a challenge. And then, running this whole forward operating base, it was a very large base, several hundred people on. We had both Afghan commandos as well as numerous Americans on board of all the different enabler units. We had the route clearance patrol there. We had the fuel and ammo resupply point. And of course, the big thing is the forward surgical team, which is like kind of a modern day MASH element. And our PRT ran the aid station, which was like the emergency room. And of course, the surgeons ran the operating space, which was the forward surgical team. One of the responsibilities that we had that I will say, I believe, talking to some of the members and for myself, was kind of an unexpected challenge, was as we were the triage team. We were the guys that ran out there with a litter to the helicopter in the pitch black nighttime, in the daytime if you weren't out on mission. Whenever aid, wounded and aided came in, we were the triage folks that carried them off the helicopter to the base aid station or directly to surgery. And so there was a lot of, visual of severely injured Americans and Afghans, both civilian and Afghan military, that our people were dealing with on an everyday basis, all right, constant basis. And, I think that was not, obviously everybody wants to be there to help and do things, but I think that, wears on you a little bit, partly because sometimes when the guys would come in, you'd say, hey, where was this guy or what happened or whatever, you'd find out that they were just where you were that same day. And somehow they got hit, you didn't. Or maybe worse, they would be where we were going the next morning, right? So people are thinking about that all night. Hey, that guy I just saw who lost his legs, that's where we're going tomorrow, where all that IED activity is, or, this complex ambush or whatever it was. And I know that was challenging for everyone. We had one particular experience that we had a couple of young folks that were not in our unit. They were military police folks that were stationed at our base, and they were qualified in our tactical operations center, which of course we ran again as a part of the base command structure. And so they were getting off their shift during the evening one night, and a Medevac was coming in, and myself and these two gentlemen, as well as a number of our folks from our unit, went up to bring the casualties down. There was a gunshot wound from one American soldier, and one of the medics was injured, or in this case, he was killed by the helicopter itself in trying to rescue the injured servicemen. They were on a hillside, on a very steep hill, and it was nighttime, and he got disoriented, and he unfortunately was killed by the helicopter. We'll just leave it at that. And there was some conflicting information that's coming into the talk as to who the injured is, right? And so we get up there and we evacuate the gunshot wound because he was alive and injured obviously severely. So we get him in, and me and these two young military policemen go back out to the helicopter because they're signaling to us, and it's nighttime, so it's pitch black. You just have the little wand that they're holding in their hand to try to signal us back to the helicopter. And we wound up carrying the medic in who was killed, and it was shocking to the three of us there as we're struggling to bring his litter in. And then of course the people in the surgical team all knew this gentleman, so that was a shock to them. And these two military policemen, for they're young guys just for the first time volunteering to go up to be part of this triage element, and for Medevac, and this is their first experience, and it was obviously shocking to them and to all of us. So that was a collateral duty that I think a lot of people weren't necessarily as prepared for or ready that we were going to be doing. And that I think may have played a role with some folks, just even coming home afterwards.
Definitely. And you never expect someone to be taken out that way, especially.
Yes. Yep.
That's almost a shock and awe loss right there.
Yes.
We all knew the dangers, like you said, that you go out on a patrol, you already have this list of things that are going to happen. You know what's going to happen. There's going to be an IED in a culvert. There's going to be some dude doing something crazy. You don't never expect that to happen. And that's something not on your bingo card, as the kids say today. It's not on your bingo card because that's not something you ever thought of. And it's wow, that's just horrible.
Yep.
So you guys rotated back. And you said 9 months you were there, so you rotated back, and you all went separate ways. So you had to go back to Atterbury and demo somewhere else.
We went our separate ways, and I think one of the extra interest, whatever challenges of the way we left the theater is about 6 months into our deployment. So right around Christmas time, we started getting direction to start rotating some of our people back to the States because we were now downsizing after we had this rather large surge. And so there were members of our unit that were being sent back to the States through the winter of 2012, December, January, February, even before we were as an element, as a unit going to be sent back. So we didn't, so people were just leaving to go back. So that's played a role. And then, of course, just having a very small space for people to occupy as, the incoming PRT was coming to relieve us, and you're going through that relief in place transfer authority process. You have folks coming in, they're training with our guys, we're sending people out, so they now start filling our spaces. And so our unit is leaving, in drips and drabs slowly, and they're all heading back to the States. And so at the end, before we went to our final, what we call in the Navy, change of command ceremony, but the RIPTOA ceremony, there was only 5 of us left for that ceremony. It was the CO, the XO, the sergeant major, and our operations officer and our logistics officer. So Captain Murdoch, Sergeant Major Campbell, myself, Captain Shemansky, who was our ops officer, and Captain Stadden, who was our logistics officer. We were the 5 folks that were there for that final ceremony. And then, we left country together, but all of our folks had left already. Wow. And we did not see anybody again. Right. That was it. You just went back to, for us, we went to Kuwait for a few days and then back to the States. For me, with the other XOs, we got together and went back to the United States, went back to Gulfport, turned in our gear, and then, I flew home to Chicago, basically. So we really didn't have an opportunity to kind of, come back as a unit, decompress as a unit. There was some time that they provided folks as they transferred back to the States, but it wasn't together as a group. Let's put it that way. And again, having this patchwork type unit, again, you're not showing up together for work at a base somewhere, going back into a deployment schedule or anything. You're going off to the four corners of the earth. And we had, like my CO, Captain Murdoch, he was sent on an aircraft carrier deployment after that. So he's been gone now for basically 2 years with all his training. He gets back home, and then he's joining, as the ops officer in a carrier battle group, and he's out to sea for 9 or 10 months now on a carrier, right immediately thereafter. So everybody was kind of going back to their own places. For me as a reservist, I was coming back to my civilian job, so getting back into that mindset. Dealing with challenges at home while I was preparing to deploy. My wife had developed a severe medical condition, and she had an abscess in her brain and had to have brain surgery. So she's now having this horrible medical situation. We have 2 small children. I'm away, getting ready to go to war and then eventually at war. So it was definitely a very chaotic time period for everything. And so you come back, and it was right before we were leaving, the 5 of us kind of took a picture together that morning before the change of command ceremony. And we were very proud of the fact that we had gotten everybody home. There were injuries, challenges, but everybody was alive. And we felt we had done the mission, successfully, what we were asked to do during our time in country. and we ran the base well, and everything went as best we would hope for. And so you're kind of proud that we've gotten everybody home safe, and you almost have this feeling of like, thank God we did it. We did it. And then, unfortunately, about a year later, we have the first one of our members pass away, due to suicide, and it was a shock.
Yeah.
And then we had a second member, and it's like, what's happening? Stop, please. It's almost like an avalanche at this point. What's happening? And everybody's off in their own space, and it's very difficult to be able to sort of understand what folks' circumstances are. Are they having trouble reintegrating life, relationship problems? Are they having work problems? Are they, haunted by things that they experienced in country? You just don't exactly know. So, unfortunately, in 2013, we lost Staff Sergeant Kevin O'Boyle, who was a part of he was a squad leader in our unit. And so, again, our unit is this patchwork of different entities. We had a security force platoon from the 182nd Infantry Regiment of the Massachusetts National Guard that was providing our security as we went out to do our mission for both governance and development, as well as we had an OP that we staffed, OP Nevada, which was right across the Kunar River from our base. And every week a squad of the Sec 4 guys would go up there and spend a week up on top of OP Nevada, and then they would rotate out with one of the other squads, and they'd come back and be doing mission work with us. And so they had a lot of responsibilities. It was probably a mission that was a little different than perhaps what they were previously used to and whatnot, as for all of us. But we lost Kevin in 2013, and we did have an opportunity to get together at his funeral and see some of the folks. And you ask everybody, how are you doing? How are you doing? But it's it's just in passing, right? And anybody could say I'm fine. You don't know if that's just an honest statement or they're just saying that to you. And being an officer, do people really want to talk to you? I mean, it's just it's different. It's difficult to say. I'm very fortunate that one of my coworkers in my civilian job that I work with here in Chicago is actually one of the members of our unit.
Wow.
Sergeant Kevin Maloney, who is also in our Sec 4 unit. He's a part of the nuclear security element for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission out of our Chicago field office. And so I'm happy I get to see him and talk to him. And we're both able to, be buddy check for each other and whatnot. And that's a good thing. But everybody else is in all these different places throughout the world. And, we never really had a get back together and sort of decompress together moments. And then in 2014, we lost Specialist Jacob Stiles. Again, you don't know what everybody's story is. You're just kind of hoping that this isn't going to inspire others to think that they should do this as well. One failure not related, I don't know if this is a failure. I don't know how to characterize it. When I came home in 2012, one of the neighbors, our backyard neighbor, invited us over to his pool, and we were having a nice pool party and everything. And he said, well, there's a kid down the street who got back about 6 months ago, and he's struggling getting a job and stuff like that. And, maybe I can arrange for you guys to talk. And I said, yeah, I'd love to, that's fine. And in my head, I'm thinking, what does he want to talk to an older, officer for? He's a young kid. He doesn't want to talk to me, but I said, yeah, I'm available. Just give him my name and number, and whenever he's ready, I'll talk, whatever. Right. And, he didn't reach out, and I didn't reach out. I just sort of forgot about it and got busy with my life and everything. And by November, he had committed suicide, and it's in our neighborhood. Right. And it's just, you're thinking, that I could I have saved him or played a role in helping him choose something different, or was it silly to even think I have any power to do anything in that? I don't know. It's an unanswered question for me that I don't know the answer to. Should I have been more aggressive? Was I even reconciled with my own situation at that moment when we were talking to my neighbor about it? This wasn't somebody I knew, so that added an extra challenge. You have to kind of go out there and reach out. So, these are definitely things that are unanswered in my mind. I don't know, to be honest with you. What I do today is, I'm very active in the American Legion. My wife is very active in the American Legion Auxiliary here in Plainfield. We have over 400 veteran members of our post, so it's a really active post. Denise Williams is a member of our post, the Gold Star mother that you interviewed on Monday. So I think as a post, we try to really look after our members and see where everybody's at. We've got a number of members, who are combat veterans of, Vietnam and even some Korea folks, Persian Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan. And so, you're just always trying to be cognizant of what people's experiences were in the military and making sure that they know what medical is available to them, what VA services are available to them, disability, anything that could be, impactful to their life, and hopefully reduce the stress and pressure and things that haunt them in their life. And so we try to be very active with that and help folks with that as best we can. And maybe that's a way of trying to, I don't know, where we feel maybe, for myself anyway, where maybe I missed something earlier, that this would be making up for that in some way, I guess. I don't know. It's
what we do as leaders. If we perceive something did not work the way it should have, because maybe we thought we didn't do enough, then we try to recreate and maybe make it sure it doesn't happen to the next person.
That's right.
In your situation, your unit came together as a hodgepodge, basically, from all across the country, landed in Camp Atterbury, and did your mobilization training there, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Camp Atterbury, for anyone who's not been there, is just a lovely place. I'm sure you went down to Muscatatuck and did some inner city.
Yes, sure. Well. We did, yes.
It's great training areas, but not a great place to stay for a long period. But that is not enough time for a hodgepodge unit to get to know everybody. Then you got thrown into the devil's mix over there in Afghanistan and Kunar, right during the fighting season. All your guys are now on the tip of the spear for their tour, and you're told to be the bad guy. Now they're seeing things from different light than you were trained on, probably saying, "Oh, this is what you're going to do," and then when you get there, you're doing something different. And then again, the world comes in and says, "Hey, let's get all your guys home before you go," and everyone goes to the four winds, and you don't get to have that little decompression time, like I'm sure you guys got to do on the subs, or when you were on other deployments. You come back, you have a little decompression time amongst each other, and then go out, and that way you have a little compass check on each other. You guys lost that opportunity, and I'm not saying that's why this happens, because I'm not a psychologist at all. Things happen, and bad things happen to good people all the time. I was researching both guys, Sergeant O'Boyle and Special Styles, and I think in that unit alone, or the two sister units in the Massachusetts National Guard there, I think there was almost a dozen people we lost to self-inflicted harm. And that's not a good sign at all. Something's going on amongst them. Maybe they all seen things, and it just, like you said earlier, avalanche and that domino effect. And it's horrible, and it's an epidemic amongst our brothers and sisters right now. You always see that 22 a day number come up, and people, they have all these programs to maybe stop it. Doing push-ups doesn't stop it. Talking to people stops it. That's what we have to start doing.
Yep. Yeah, I certainly agree. And, again, even with our older veterans, through the American Legion, even though they might have served 50 years ago in combat, they still have tremendous scars and things that challenge them on a daily basis that, we just have to be cognizant of. And, we try, again, through the work that we do with the Legion and in Plainfield and in the Chicagoland area, just try to be aware for them and helpful to them and acknowledge their service and be a listening ear to them and let them know that I think we do a better job as a society of being more welcoming of people telling their story and explaining perhaps their feelings. So that helps, but it hasn't been a complete, panacea to the problem. Let's put it that way. So.
And those gentlemen that are from Korea and Vietnam, when they came home, they didn't really get that medical attention or that mental health attention that we get now. And it's sometimes we reach back and say thank you to them for suffering, because now we got it.
Right.
And of course, their fight is through the American Legion, VFW, and such like that, to get that advocacy to help us. Now, getting them to talk about it is the hard part.
Yes. Yeah. We, we're big supporters of the Honor Flight Chicago system, which sends veterans up through Vietnam to DC for the day and gives them the welcome home that they didn't receive. Obviously, they were coming back with combat scars, and then they were being told that they were horrible people on top of that. We were blessed with, coming through Hartsfield Airport when I was flying back on R&R with people clapping for us and everything. And it was a universal appreciation where they had the exact opposite. Other than their family members, it was pretty much, they were bad guys or something like that. So, so they're getting to now experience the proper appreciation, for their service. Again, you don't have to agree with the war and everything. And I think, unfortunately, the situation with Afghanistan and, obviously how things have turned out, which is, if you've served there, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, Rich, it's, it's heartbreaking to see where it's gone to, right? It doesn't matter about politics or which party or how we exit, whatever. Just the fact that, it was weird to me to see by the time that, the situation really degraded in Afghanistan, and now we've got the Taliban back running things there, that, there were people on both sides of the political spectrum basically saying, oh yeah, and this was, who the hell would get us into this terrible war anyway? And it's like, what? This was because of 9/11. I mean, what were we going to do? Nothing. I mean, it's like, are you crazy? I mean, again, you don't have to agree with how we did it. Maybe the whole coin thing was a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't have been spending money on all these things. However, we could argue the tactics, the strategy, all of that stuff forever. But, we were in Afghanistan for a reason. I mean, I know Iraq could be really challenging, and it might take a PhD in geopolitics to decide whether Iraq was the right thing or the wrong thing or how it happened or this or that. But, Afghanistan seemed like kind of a softball, right? I mean, our homeland is attacked for the first time in any meaningful way since Pearl Harbor. We're going to respond militarily to that, so it became very strange to me. It almost seemed like in some way Afghanistan became not the quote unquote good war anymore, that it was another one of these, how did we get ourselves into this mess and doing this and that? And, it's very strange. So again, we could argue the tactics of how we were fighting the war, et cetera, or how we exited or whatever it is. But just was that was really disheartening for a lot of folks. And in honesty, I really feared that we were going to see a real uptick in these suicides when Afghanistan just turned right back into effectively pre 9/11 Afghanistan in many ways, right? So
worse in many ways. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Once we all sat back and all of us who served there, seen what happened at Abbey Gate.
Yes. Yeah.
That was the catalyst. You've seen all the social media posts go crazy from all the Watt bros. And that's when I thought the same thing. I thought we're going to have this huge uptick in either people self-harm or harming others for no reason whatsoever, just to get anger out. And we'd have a very bad situation going on. Thankfully, those numbers didn't rise on both sides. But it was very hard to watch from afar all the things we did just go gone within basically a couple of weeks.
Yep.
It was insane how fast they moved through that country, how they mobilized. I mean, they were all throughout the country already. They just had to mobilize, and we sat back and watched it.
Yeah. It was like everything we did was almost for nothing. When we were in country, getting close to our time to mobilize, to redeploy back to the States, we were going to visit one of the many projects that we had, created, was a school. And part of that, you go and do a quality assurance check to make sure it's being utilized in the right way and whatnot. And so we go to the school and we're meeting with the schoolmaster, and he comes out to talk with us, and he tells us we can't leave. And so we have this American mind that we're thinking, like, was he asking us to lunch or something like that? And, we're thinking like, hey, no, we got to get back because we have other jobs to do today. And he's like, no, you can't leave the country. You can't leave. And we said, well, it's going to come to a time where we're going to have to leave. And he says, well, when you do, they're just going to come down from the mountains and kill us, right? For working with you, for educating young people, especially girls. They're out there. They haven't left. They're just waiting their time to come out and wreak havoc. And, unfortunately, he was prescient, because that's really what happened at the end of the day, right? As soon as we weren't there in any sort of level of force or strength, the Afghans that, we were hoping would be able to keep things going, were overtaken pretty quickly. So
Sad time. Again, like you said earlier, we can't control what happens 3 levels above us on the geopolitical side. We only can do what we can do on the ground and fight for our brothers and sisters to our right and left. And if we did what we felt was right there where we were in our foxhole, then we did a good job and we won where we were. We might not have won the geopolitical war in the end, but we won those battles along the way.
Yep, I agree.
We got a couple questions in the comments here for you.
Okay.
The first one is from Ernie Pete. What leadership lesson stayed with you after military service? Thank you, Ernie.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, being a nuke, competence is vital in leadership, right? Because you have to know what you're doing, or else, things don't go well for the unit that you're leading, the group that you're leading. You don't have the respect of your people. So always trying to learn your trade, your task, the unit's task, the mission, and have people really appreciate and respect your level of knowledge of what you're doing. And in some regards, that was a challenge in Afghanistan, coming from a non-ground, Army type perspective, having to really quickly learn those lessons and tactics, techniques, and procedures to kind of build everybody's confidence in you as a leader, because, you're starting a little bit behind, but the leadership piece, being a leader and being somebody, that people can respect and be approachable. So, being competent, but also at the same time, being somebody who is approachable for your people, that they know that if there's a mistake or there's a challenge or something that's not going the way we want, that they're not afraid to come to you and tell you that, because you need to know that, right? You need to be able to be a true leader. You have to understand what's happening around you. That's part of that competence piece. And you can't know everything. Your people are going to, that collective wisdom of the unit. And if they're not able to come up to you and tell you bad news and explain things and give good recommendations, as a leader, you're going to fail. And so I think that's the most important thing to me, is knowing your trade and then having the ability to bring your people in, train them up, give them the opportunity to be, their own little leaders at their level, and then have them be able to come to you and explain what's happening in their world, so that we as a unit can move forward and we get our mission done. That's to me has worked out, whether I'm running a program at a nuclear power plant as a senior resident inspector, or when I was serving as a division officer on the submarine, or being the XO of the PRT in Afghanistan. All of those things are that sort of emphasis is really what worked for me, I think.
That's outstanding. I think Ernie would like that answer right there. Hopefully he'll chime back in. I think that's an awesome answer. Next one is from Johnny True. There's a veteran somewhere watching this episode right now who is carrying a burden they haven't told anyone about. What would Commander Greg Roach tell them tonight? Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny. I appreciate that. I would thank them for their service to their country and their love for their nation. I would remind them that they're a part of the brother and sisterhood of our armed forces as veterans. I would tell them to find somebody that they love and trust and be vulnerable to them, and tell them, the things that they may be struggling with, that there's no dishonor in that there's no weakness in that. That actually takes strength to be able to show that you're not 100% right at that moment, that you need some help with something, and that there is going to be a better tomorrow, no matter what it seems like today. No matter what, if you reach out to people and you work with people you love and care for, that you could overcome any challenge, no matter how insurmountable it feels today, that there is an opportunity tomorrow to keep moving forward, to keep improving. It doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be perfect. It just means that we're going to continue to move forward, that there's people that care about you. There's organizations out there that you could join, that you could maybe meet people that share your same experience, like for me in the American Legion, but there are other veterans groups out there in the community. We work with a lot of them in there's some local groups here where we are in the Chicagoland area. Naperville Cares for Veterans and Allen Force. There's a number of groups that we have where just veterans coming together kind of organically, working together, helping each other with physical, emotional challenges that they have in their life. So that's really what I would say is please do not give up hope. You may have seen very difficult things. You may have experienced very difficult things. They may be bothering or haunting you. I cannot sit here and tell you that your life is going to be perfect and that those things are not going to be there in some way. But with the camaraderie of others and with the help of others and some resilience in your heart, you could continue to live life and continue to be successful and be happy and deal with these challenges when they surface. So I would hope that would have an impact. I hope.
Awesome. That's a great answer. I felt like you heard what we say at the end of every show. We almost mirror what you just said. So that's awesome. I'm still going to say it, but that was awesome. This one here is from Better Than Not. After everything you've accomplished from the Naval Academy to submarines to Afghanistan, what have Kevin and Jacob taught you about leadership that no school, rank, or battlefield ever could?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. I think that what they've taught me is that you have to be always thinking about your people and where they're at. And I know that they were doing that. You know, I said Kevin was a squad leader, so he had his men that he was thinking about. Jacob was more junior, but he still had folks that were relying on him as a peer to kind of help each other through the process. But you always have to be thinking about them and what perspectives they're coming from. Because, you know, you have your own history, your own experiences. You know, they have their experiences and history and just trying to, again, when I first pointed out what I appreciated about submarine life so much is that everybody knew each other on that submarine. You know, it might seem like we all know each other's business, but we all know each other's business. So you know where people are hurting about something or challenging, or if they're having marital problems or whatever, right? You kind of know everybody's situation a lot better, right? Which then helps you be a leader for them, you know, and how you motivate them, how you work with them, how you help them accomplish the mission, which is our ultimate goal, right? And so I would say the experience of serving with them, you know, they did a wonderful job in Afghanistan. They worked very hard to make sure we accomplished the mission, both on OP Nevada and on all the missions we did, as well as operating the base, being first online to deal with casualties as they came through the forward surgical hospital. You know, those are the things that they taught me, you know, as to be soldiers, and, you know, some of those TTPs that we had to learn as Navy people, you know, again, they were experts in that. So I would say that's something I learned from them, but also just always trying to think about where your people are coming from and what challenges they have, and then helping them, you know, defeat those challenges and overcome those challenges. So that's what I would say.
It's outstanding. And Greg, thanks for sharing. All three of those questions are pretty good questions. Great answers on all three of those. And of course, thank you for sharing with Kevin and Jacob's life with us and your story tonight. And of course, your incredible journey through service.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. Sorry we had a little interruption there, but
all right.
It was a great experience. Thank you.
Interruptions happen, and it's how we deal with them. It makes it better. So we both were able to deal with it and work the problem and came out on the other side. So shows all the tendencies that we picked up along the way in the military.
That's right. Adapt and overcome, right?
That's right. So I have two last questions for you.
Yeah.
The first one is, if someone in the audience wants to maybe have you on their show or just talk to you about maybe getting into the academy or getting into nuclear engineering, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
I would say through the Plainfield American Legion. I'm happy to give you an email address or whatever, if that's that would be something helpful. I think that would be a really good way to do that. But I am the Americanism officer for the Plainfield American Legion and past commander of the post in Plainfield, Illinois. So I'm available through there. And again, I have my email. So that would be an opportunity to reach out to me.
Awesome. And my last question is, What's 3 things the Misfit Nation, our audience, can start doing tomorrow to be better people?
That is a tough one. I would say be aware of everything that's happening in your country. And that's a really tall task. That sounds crazy insane. So you got to start with small bites, right? How do you eat an elephant in small bites? You should be reading. You should be looking from various different angles on what's happening in the world, being cognizant of our foreign policy, our nation, our domestic policies, what makes sense, having hopefully a reasoned approach to ensuring our country remains strong on the world front. It's not acceptable to me to think of the United States not being the global superpower. That's not acceptable, right? So being engaged, understanding how our government works, getting out to vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for. We don't have to agree on politics, but you have to be engaged. You have to understand what's happening and hopefully make decisions that are going to help our country stay strong. So I would say that would be the first thing, is be absolutely engaged and aware and educate yourself. And you have to listen to diverse viewpoints. If you listen to the same stuff over and over again, even if it feels very comforting because it might be what you agree with, you're going to miss something and you're not going to understand something and you're not going to have a full picture. So please consider that. Again, you don't have to agree with what you're reading, but you just should be cognizant of what other ideas are out there, and try to understand where they're coming from. And maybe that will bring some civility back to the discourse of our country, I would hope. The other thing is, stay physically and mentally fit. How you stay mentally fit, again, being engaged with people, hopefully having friends and camaraderie, either through coworkers or family, friends, whatever. But physical fitness really aids with mental fitness, right? So if you're doing some basic exercising and you keep your body healthy, hopefully eating good foods and whatnot, that will assist you in your mental health as well. I think that has we tend to feel really good after we exercise, right? That's kind of a natural body feeling. But if you're doing that somewhat regularly, staying, you don't have to be running marathons, but just doing things to stay fit and keeping yourself healthy, especially former veterans who used to be in great shape in the military, and then time goes by and we've kind of put on some weight. I've done that, everything. I understand, again, staying healthy and fit really, really supports your mental health as well. And I would say the third thing is get involved in the community, right? The American Legion is super, super, super big. One of our pillars is the community, children and youth, and wholesome events in the community. Get out there, get involved in your town, do things, volunteer. That's how our country improves. We do it on the local level, and then if you're really motivated, maybe at a bigger, wider level. But just get out there. It could be veterans service organization. It could be just a community charity, simply volunteering at the school or whatever in your neighborhood. I really, really, that to me is, I referee youth soccer, and I'm very engaged in the American Legion. Those are kind of my hobbies and things I really like to do. So it helps with the physical fitness and being engaged and providing something for the community. So I think those things help me a lot. I would recommend them to others.
I'll say those are a great list of things there to get involved with. The community is a huge one. Mentally and physically fit, and be aware. Just be engaged in your government. Understand what's going on across our nation, across your community. Like we like to tell you here, start small. Fix your community first, then grow up. Fix your neighborhood, go to your community, then get your city, and move on from there. But understand all the things that are happening from above and beyond you, so you know what to talk about. And I really love that you said use diverse points of view and talk to people. That's a great thing to say.
Thank you.
Again, thanks for being here tonight. It's awesome chatting with you, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a good weekend.
You too. Misfit Nation, as Greg just said a little bit ago, we know sometimes things get tough, things get heavy. Walls start to feel like they're caving in. Don't let the darkness win. Don't let that moment of insurmountable pressure get to you. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Reach into your wallet, pull out that piece of paper, those 3 names on it. Call those 3 names. Let them know you're hurting, or let them know that you're there for them. They want to hear from you as much as you want to hear from them. If that doesn't work, dial 988. And then if all that doesn't work, you don't want to call 988, contact us. info@themisfitnation.com, jake@themisfitnation.com, or steven@themisfitnation.com. And we will get contact with you. We'll keep you on the line until someone local can get to you and make sure you're okay and you're with us tomorrow. So a day tomorrow with you is 100% better than one without you. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you Tuesday.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.